He took the flower, unaware he was accepting a breeding proposal from the alien girl. Kevin wiped the sweat from his brow as he finished his morning workout routine in the garden of the Interstellar Embassy on Nexus Prime. The twin suns beat down on his muscular torso, highlighting the various scars earned during his years as a diplomatic security specialist. His tousled brown hair and neatly trimmed beard gave him a rugged appearance that had caught the attention of more than a few alien dignitaries. "Ambassador Thompson's morning briefing starts in 20 minutes, sir," his AI assistant chimed through his neural implant. "Thanks, Eve. Just need a quick shower," Kevin replied, grabbing his towel. As he turned toward the embassy building, a flash of lavender caught his eye. Standing near the crystalline fountain was one of the most striking alien women he'd ever seen. Her skin was a soft shade of lavender, and her flowing purple hair cascaded down her back in gentle waves. She wore the traditional robes of the Nixian nobility, but there was something different about her, a wild spark in her silver eyes that set her apart from the usually reserved aliens. Their eyes met, and she smiled, revealing pearly white teeth that contrasted beautifully with her exotic skin tone. Kevin found himself returning the smile before he could stop himself. "Pardon my intrusion," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying a melodic quality that seemed to dance in the air. "I'm Lady Attila Nixtallen. I couldn't help but admire your training regimen." Kevin chuckled, suddenly aware of his shirtless state. "Kevin Moore? Embassy security, and no intrusion at all, my lady, though I should probably make myself more presentable for diplomatic company." "Oh, please don't change on my account," Attila said with a playful smirk. "We Nixians appreciate natural beauty." The way she said it made Kevin's skin tingle. He'd dealt with alien flirtation before. It came with the job. But something about Attila felt different, more genuine perhaps, or maybe just more dangerous. "Lady Attila," a stern voice called from the embassy entrance, "the council awaits." "Duty calls," she sighed, her silver eyes lingering on Kevin. "But I do hope we'll meet again, Kevin Moore." As she glided away, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would lead to something far more complicated than simple diplomatic relations. He was right. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed frequently, sometimes in the embassy gardens, other times at diplomatic functions where Kevin provided security. Each encounter was charged with unspoken tension and playful banter that walked the line between professional courtesy and something more intimate. Then came the morning of the pink flower. Kevin was reviewing security protocols when Attila approached him, holding what appeared to be an alien rose. Its petals were a deep pink that seemed to pulse with an inner light, and its stem was adorned with silver thorns that caught the sunlight. "A token of my appreciation," she said, offering him the flower with both hands. Kevin hesitated for a moment. Something about the formality of the gesture tickled his diplomatic instincts, but Attila's warm smile disarmed his suspicions. He accepted the flower with a slight bow. "It's beautiful," he said, admiring the way the petals seemed to respond to his touch. "Thank you." Attila's eyes widened with joy, and she stepped forward to place a gentle kiss on his cheek. "The pleasure is mine, Kevin Moore. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have wonderful news to share with my family." As she practically danced away, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just agreed to something far more significant than accepting a simple gift. He had no idea how right he was. Kevin's morning started with an urgent message from Ambassador Thompson. "Moore, my office, immediately. We have a situation." Still holding the mysterious pink flower from yesterday, Kevin made his way to the ambassador's office. The elderly diplomat was pacing, his usually composed demeanor notably ruffled. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Thompson asked, running fingers through his silver hair. "Sir, that flower in your hand, the eternal rose of Nixus, by accepting it, you've..." Thompson cleared his throat. "Well, you've essentially agreed to marry Lady Attila. And not just marry, their culture has very specific expectations about procreation." Kevin nearly dropped the flower. What?" "The Nixian royal family is arriving in an hour to discuss the union ceremony. Apparently, Lady Attila informed them immediately after you accepted her proposal." "But I didn't know," Kevin protested. "I thought it was just a gift." "That's exactly why I called you here first. The Nixians take these matters very seriously. Refusing now would cause a diplomatic incident that could damage Earth-Nixian relations for generations." Before Kevin could respond, Eve's voice chimed in his neural implant. "Sir, Lady Attila and her family have arrived early. They're in the Grand Hall." Kevin's heart raced as he followed Thompson to meet them. The Grand Hall was filled with tall, elegant Nixians, their lavender skin seeming to glow under the crystalline chandeliers. Attila stood with an older couple who could only be her parents, her father's stern expression contrasting sharply with her mother's excited smile. "Kevin!" Attila rushed forward, taking his hands in hers. Her silver eyes sparkled with joy. "I'm so happy you're here. Mother, father, this is my chosen one." Her father, wearing elaborate robes that marked him as a high-ranking noble, stepped forward. "I am Lord Thalront Nixtalen. You have accepted my daughter's proposal, demonstrating remarkable courage for a human. Our bloodline has never merged with your species before." Kevin caught the subtle emphasis on bloodline and felt his face heat. "My lord, there seems to be a cultural misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Attila's mother interrupted, her voice musical but concerned. "But you accepted the Eternal Rose. Surely your embassy briefed you on our customs?" Thompson stepped in smoothly. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately. The Grand Hall isn't the most suitable place for such intimate matters." They moved to a private conference room where Kevin learned exactly what he'd agreed to. The Eternal Rose wasn't just a marriage proposal. It was a sacred ritual of the Nixian nobility, specifically chosen when they found a mate they believed would produce powerful offspring. "Our seers have studied your genetic compatibility," Lord Thalront explained. "They predict extraordinary potential. Your human adaptability combined with our psychic abilities could create something unprecedented." Kevin's mind reeled. "And if I hadn't accepted the flower, then I would have continued my courtship until you did," Attila said simply, her hand finding his. "I chose you, Kevin Moore. Your strength, your honor, your very humanity called to me from the first moment I saw you." Her touch sent warmth through his body, and despite his initial panic, Kevin found himself considering the situation more carefully. Attila was beautiful, intelligent, and there was definitely chemistry between them. But marriage? Children? "The ceremony must be conducted within 3 lunar cycles," Lord Thalront continued. "Our traditions are quite specific about the timing of conception." Kevin nearly choked. 3 lunar cycles? "Don't worry, beloved," Attila whispered, her breath tickling his ear. "I'll teach you everything you need to know about our ways, including some very pleasant customs." The suggestive tone in her voice made his pulse quicken. Ambassador Thompson cleared his throat loudly. "Perhaps we should discuss the diplomatic implications?" the ambassador suggested. "This would be the first human-Nixian noble union. There are protocols to consider." The next few hours were a blur of diplomatic discussions, cultural briefings, and traditional ceremonies. Kevin learned that Nixian nobles typically spent years preparing for their unions, but Attila had accelerated everything by giving him the flower so soon. "I couldn't wait," she admitted during a brief moment alone. "Every day I watched you train in the garden. Every conversation we shared, I knew you were the one. Your species has such passion, such drive. How could I resist?" "You could have explained what the flower meant," Kevin pointed out, though he couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. "Would you have accepted if I had?" She traced a finger along his jaw, her touch electric. Sometimes the heart must act before the mind can object. Looking into her silver eyes, feeling the warmth of her touch, Kevin realized she might be right. The situation was crazy, unprecedented, and potentially diplomatically explosive. But something about it felt right. "So," he said, taking her hand, "tell me more about these pleasant customs of yours." Attila's laugh was like music. "Oh, my brave human, you have so much to learn about Nixian pleasure rituals. But first, we must announce our union to the council. They'll be particularly interested in the genetic implications." "The genetic..." "Right." Kevin remembered Lord Thalront's words about offspring. "About that. Don't worry," Attila purred. "The actual breeding process is quite enjoyable, and I've studied human physiology extensively." She winked. "Very extensively." The ancient arena of House Nixtalen gleamed under the twin suns, its crystalline walls refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Kevin stood in the preparation chamber, examining the traditional combat suit they'd provided, a form-fitting garment that seemed to pulse with biomechanical energy. The trial of worthiness hasn't been conducted in 3 generations, Attila explained, helping him adjust the suit's neural interfaces. Her fingers lingered on his skin, sending pleasant shivers down his spine. Most nobles arrange marriages through political channels. Lucky me, Kevin chuckled, trying to hide his nervousness. Just 3 potentially lethal challenges to prove I'm worthy of being your mate. No pressure. 4, actually. Attila's silver eyes sparkled with mischief. The 4th trial is private, but I'm quite confident you'll excel at that one. Before Kevin could respond to her suggestive comment, Lord Thalran entered the chamber. The council has assembled. Are you prepared, human? As I'll ever be, my lord. The arena erupted in murmurs as Kevin entered. Thousands of Nixian nobles filled the stands, their lavender skin creating a surreal purple sea. In the royal box, Ambassador Thompson sat uncomfortably among Attila's family, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The first trial tests strength and endurance, announced the Master of Ceremonies, his voice echoing through the arena. The challenger must defeat the Guardian of the Ancient Ways. A massive door opened and Kevin's jaw dropped. The Guardian was a bioengineered creature that looked like a cross between a rhinoceros and a mountain. Its crystalline armor gleamed menacingly as it charged. Kevin's combat training kicked in. He dove to the side, rolling smoothly and analyzing the beast's movement patterns. The creature was powerful but predictable, its attacks following ancient programming. Your species is physically weaker than ours, the Guardian's synthetic voice boomed. How can you protect a Nixian mate? We humans have a saying, Kevin grinned, executing a perfect flip over the charging beast. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. He landed on the Guardian's back, his suit's neural interface connecting with the creature's crystalline armor. Years of security work had taught him to hack various systems, and this ancient Guardian was no exception. The crowd gasped as Kevin redirected the creature's energy, causing its armor to glow brilliantly before powering down. The Guardian knelt, acknowledging defeat. Impressive, Lord Thalran muttered in the royal box. He defeated it with intelligence rather than brute force. The second trial proved even more challenging. Kevin found himself in a psychic maze where he had to navigate through manifestations of his deepest fears and desires. Your mind is untrained in our ways, a disembodied voice taunted. How can you bond with a Nixian noble? Images of Attila appeared, each more tempting than the last, trying to distract him from his goal. But Kevin recognized the test for what it was, a challenge of focus and willpower. Human minds might be different, he said, pushing through the illusions, but our determination is unmatched. He completed the maze in record time, earning appreciative murmurs from the council. Attila's proud smile made his heart race faster than any challenge could. The third trial was the most dangerous, a test of adaptability. Kevin found himself in a rapidly changing environment, facing multiple opponents who shifted between physical and energy forms. Your species is rigid, unchanging, they taunted. How can you adapt to our evolving bloodline? Kevin laughed, his combat suit synchronizing with his movements as he danced between attacks. Humanity's greatest strength is our ability to adapt. We've survived countless challenges by evolving, learning, growing. He demonstrated this by using the environment itself as a weapon, turning his opponent's attacks against each other and showing remarkable creativity in his solutions. When the dust settled, Kevin stood victorious, his suit scuffed, but his spirit unbroken. The arena erupted in cheers, the first time the traditionally stoic Nixians had shown such emotion. The human has passed the traditional trials, the Master of Ceremonies announced, but there is one final test. Attila descended from the royal box, her ceremonial robes flowing around her like liquid starlight. She approached Kevin with a new eternal rose, even more brilliant than the first. This time, she said softly, you must accept with full knowledge of what it means. Our bodies, our bloodlines, our futures, all will be joined. Do you accept? Kevin took a moment to look around the arena. He saw Ambassador Thompson's worried but proud expression, Lord Thalran's grudging respect, and the curious faces of thousands of Nixians who had never witnessed a human demonstrate such capability. But most importantly, he saw Attila, beautiful, brilliant, and completely certain about her choice. The past few weeks had shown him that their cultural differences didn't matter as much as their connection. I accept, he said, taking the rose, with full knowledge and free will. The arena erupted in a spectacular light show as ancient Nixian energy patterns recognized and blessed the union. Attila pulled Kevin into a kiss that sent sparks of actual electricity through both their bodies. "The fourth trial awaits," she whispered against his lips. "I hope you're not too tired from the others." "I thought humans were supposed to have less stamina than Nixians," he teased back. "Oh, beloved," she laughed, her silver eyes glowing with anticipation. "You're about to prove many of our assumptions about humans wonderfully wrong." The celebration following Kevin's triumph in the arena was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. Lord Kirval, head of the rival House Valtherin, strode into the grand reception hall of the Nixtalan Palace, his emerald robes swirling dramatically. "I invoke the law of ancestral trials," he announced, his voice cutting through the festive atmosphere. "The human must complete the sacred 7 before any breeding can occur." Attila's father's face darkened. "Those laws haven't been invoked in millennia, Kirval. Yet they remain valid," the rival lord smirked. "Unless you wish to dishonor your house by ignoring our most ancient traditions?" Kevin, still wearing his battle-worn ceremonial suit, felt Attila's hand tighten around his. "What are the sacred 7? He whispered. "Impossible tasks," she hissed, "designed to prevent outsiders from diluting noble bloodlines in our ancient past. No one has survived them all." "Perfect," Kevin grinned, surprising everyone. "When do we start?" Lord Kirval's confident expression faltered slightly. He hadn't expected the human to accept so readily. "The first trial begins at moonrise," he declared. "The chamber of eternal frost awaits." Ambassador Thompson pulled Kevin aside. "This is insane. The Sacred 7 are mentioned in our historical databases. They're essentially suicide missions." "With all due respect, sir," Kevin replied, watching Attila argue passionately with the council, "I'm not letting some stuck-up noble with a superiority complex stop me from marrying the woman I love." The admission surprised him as much as it did Thompson. When had his feelings for Attila grown so strong? The Chamber of Eternal Frost lived up to its name. Kevin stood at its entrance, wearing a thermal suit that seemed woefully inadequate against the absolute 0 temperatures within. "The first trial tests your thermal endurance," Lord Kirval explained, looking smug. "You must retrieve the crystal of warming from the chamber's heart. No Nixian has ever survived more than 10 minutes inside." "Good thing I'm human then," Kevin replied. Before entering, he turned to Attila. "Quick question. Your people do know about human temperature regulation, right?" "What do you mean?" Kevin grinned and stepped into the chamber. The cold hit him like a physical force, but he kept moving. What the Nixians didn't know was that humans had something extraordinary. Brown fat tissue that generated heat. "Fascinating," Attila's mother whispered, watching the monitors. "His body is actually producing heat internally." Kevin reached the crystal in 8 minutes, his beard frosted, but his core temperature stable. The Nixian nobles watched in amazement as he emerged triumphant. "The second trial," Lord Kirval announced, clearly rattled, "is the maze of quantum uncertainty." This challenge proved trickier. Kevin found himself in a labyrinth where the laws of physics seemed optional. Paths that existed one moment vanished the next, and gravity changed direction randomly. "Your primitive mind cannot comprehend quantum mechanics," Kirval taunted. "How will you navigate what you cannot understand?" Kevin laughed. "You'd be surprised what humans can comprehend." He closed his eyes, remembering his combat training. "Sometimes you have to stop trying to understand and just feel the flow." Using his intuition rather than logic, Kevin completed the maze in record time, emerging with a quantum key required for the next trial. "Impossible," Kirval sputtered. "He must be cheating." "The trials themselves validate the participants' worthiness," Lord Thalron reminded him. "They cannot be deceived." The third trial involves surviving in a chamber filled with temporal distortions. The fourth required him to communicate with energy beings using only his mind. The fifth tested his genetic adaptability to various environmental extremes. Each time, Kevin's unique human characteristics proved surprisingly advantageous. His species' natural adaptability, creative problem-solving, and stubborn determination carried him through. "The sixth trial," Lord Kirval announced, his voice now tinged with desperation, "is the challenge of emotional resonance." Kevin found himself in a chamber filled with psychic crystals that amplified and projected emotions. Most Nixians, with their naturally controlled emotional states, could navigate it easily. But humans, with their complex emotional spectrum, faced a unique challenge. Kevin's feelings for Attila, his determination, his fears, and his hopes all resonated through the crystals, creating a symphony of emotional energy that threatened to overwhelm him. "Your species feels too deeply," Kiraval's voice echoed. "Your emotions will destroy you." "Our emotions are our strength," Kevin replied, channeling his feelings rather than suppressing them. The crystals began to glow with unprecedented brilliance, creating patterns of light that left the observing Nixians speechless. "Remarkable," Attila breathed. "He's not just surviving our trials, he's revealing new aspects of them we never considered." As Kevin emerged from the chamber, Lord Kiraval looked shaken. The final trial, the breeding compatibility test. "Actually," Lord Thalaran interrupted, "I believe we've seen enough. The ancient laws also state that if a challenger demonstrates to capabilities beyond the original scope of the trials, they may be declared complete. But unless you wish to argue with the Council about the meaning of our most ancient traditions." Thalaran's tone carried a warning. Kiraval's face darkened, but he bowed stiffly and withdrew. Attila rushed to Kevin, her silver eyes shining. "You continue to amaze me, my beloved. Though I must admit, I'm almost disappointed we're skipping the final trial." "Who says we have to skip it?" Kevin pulled her close, ignoring the scandalized gasp from some of the older nobles. "I'm always up for demonstrating human capabilities." The ancient breeding temple of House Nixtalan pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Crystal formations that had remained dormant for centuries suddenly blazed with life, responding to Kevin and Attila's presence. The temple's bioorganic walls thrummed with a frequency that made the air itself vibrate. "This is unprecedented," High Priestess Melara announced, her age-lavender features creased with concern. "The Temple of Union has never reacted this way to any coupling." Kevin stood shirtless in the preparation chamber as Nixian medical adepts attached monitoring crystals to his chest. Each crystal lit up with brilliant patterns the moment it touched his skin. "Your genetic structure," one adept marveled, "it's incredibly adaptable. The crystalline resonance patterns suggest your DNA can actually reconfigure itself in response to external stimuli." "That's just how humans work," Kevin shrugged. "We adapt to everything from different gravity levels to extreme temperatures." "But this is beyond mere physical adaptation," another adept interjected. "Your genetic code appears to be reaching out to connect with Nixian patterns." Attila, wearing ceremonial robes that seemed to flow like liquid starlight, approached with fresh readings from the temple's ancient diagnostic systems. "The prophecy crystals are activating, beloved. All of them." The entire chamber fell silent. Even Ambassador Thompson, who had been quietly reviewing diplomatic protocols, looked up sharply. "All of them?" High Priestess Melara whispered. "Impossible. The prophecy crystals activate individually, each predicting a single potential future." "Well, they're all lighting up now," Attila confirmed, her silver eyes wide with wonder. "And they're showing something extraordinary." The temple's main chamber had transformed into a swirling vortex of holographic predictions. Images of possible futures danced through the air. Children with human adaptability and Nixian psychic powers. New technologies born from the merger of both species' understanding and evolutionary paths that defied conventional wisdom. The ancient texts speak of a time when the stars themselves would choose new guardians, High Priestess Melara intoned, when two races would join to create something greater than the sum of their parts. "That's great and all," Kevin said, watching the swirling visions with a mix of awe and amusement. "But I'm more interested in the immediate future with my soon-to-be wife." Attila laughed, the sound making the nearby crystals chime in harmony. "Always so focused on the present, my beloved human. Though I must admit, I share your immediate interests." The medical adept's instruments suddenly began registering unprecedented readings. The very air around the couple seemed to shimmer with bioelectric energy. "Their physiological compatibility is off the charts," one adept reported excitedly. "The human's adaptive genetics are perfectly complementing Nixian evolutionary patterns. It's as if their species were designed to merge." "Not designed," Ambassador Thompson corrected, finally speaking up. "Evolved. Humans have spent their entire history adapting and changing. It's what we do best." High Priestess Melara raised her hands, and the chamber fell silent again. The breeding ceremony must begin at the precise alignment of our 3 moons. However, there is something you both must know. She guided them to an ancient crystal archive, its surface coming alive with text at their approach. According to these records, when the prophecy crystals activate in unity, the resulting union will produce not just a child, but a catalyst for both species evolution. No pressure, Kevin quipped, earning a playful elbow from Attila. This is serious, beloved, she said, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. Our child could change everything. Our child will be perfect, Kevin replied confidently, pulling her close, because it will be ours. The temple's crystals pulsed brighter in response to their embrace, creating patterns that the oldest Nixian scholars had never seen before. The human's emotional resonance is affecting the temple's systems, an adept reported in amazement. His feelings are actually strengthening the ancient power matrices. Of course they are, Attila smiled. Human emotions are their greatest strength. It's one of the many things that drew me to him. As the preparation continued, more revelations emerged. The medical scans revealed that human and Nixian biology shared surprising commonalities, hidden beneath surface differences. What's more, Kevin's unique genetic structure seemed capable of bridging the gaps between their species in ways that defied conventional science. Your DNA contains sequences we've never seen before, the lead medical adept explained. They appear to be dormant in your normal form, but in the presence of Nixian biological patterns, they're activating. It's as if humanity evolved with the potential for this very moment. Hey, that's a lot to process, Kevin admitted, watching as more prophecy crystals activated around them. When I accepted that flower, I just thought I was being polite. And now you're potentially part of the biggest evolutionary leap in both our species' history, Attila teased. Still think you should have asked more questions about the flower? Wouldn't change a thing, he replied, drawing her into another embrace that sent the monitoring crystals into overdrive. High Priestess Melara cleared her throat. The moons will align in 3 hours. Until then, you must both undergo the final purification rituals separately. 3 hours, Kevin groaned. Patience, beloved, Attila whispered in his ear. After all, we're about to make history. We should do it properly. As they parted for their respective preparations, the temple's crystals pulsed with increasing intensity, as if the ancient structure itself was eagerly awaiting what was to come. As the 3 moons of Nixus Prime aligned in perfect conjunction, the ancient breeding temple transformed. Crystalline walls became transparent, revealing intricate patterns of energy flowing through their structure. The temple's central chamber, where Kevin and Attila would complete their union, pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent glow. The temple awakens fully, High Priestess Melara announced, her voice filled with awe. It has waited millennia for this moment. Kevin entered wearing ceremonial robes that seemed to respond to his body's energy, while Attila appeared in flowing garments that merged seamlessly with the temple's crystalline architecture. Their eyes met across the chamber, and the energy patterns around them intensified. The ancient systems are activating, one of the adepts reported excitedly. They're revealing, by the stars. The chamber's walls projected vast star maps, showing the evolutionary paths of both humans and Nixians. According to the ancient records suddenly coming to life, both species had been subtly guided toward this moment of convergence. Our races didn't evolve separately, Attila gasped, reading the flowing symbols. We evolved in parallel, each developing complementary traits that would one day allow us to become something more together, Kevin finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. That's why human DNA has those dormant sequences. They were waiting for Nixian contact. The temple's systems continued revealing more. The Eternal Rose tradition wasn't just a cultural practice. It was an ancient biological key, designed to identify compatible pairs across species. When Kevin had accepted the flower, it had triggered dormant genetic markers in both of them. Your acceptance of the flower wasn't just a cultural agreement, High Priestess Melara explained. It was a biological recognition. Your genetics recognized each other as ideal matches before either of you consciously knew. Ambassador Thompson, watching from a respectful distance, muttered, "Well, that explains the paperwork nightmare." The chamber began to pulse with increasing energy as the moons reached their perfect alignment. The ancient systems revealed one final truth. The natural union of their bodies would catalyze an evolutionary leap that had been waiting to happen for millennia. The temple will amplify your natural compatibility, Melara explained, but the union itself must be the old-fashioned way, Kevin grinned. I think we can handle that. Attila's silver eyes sparkled with both love and mischief. Indeed, beloved, though perhaps we should dismiss our audience first. The observers quickly withdrew, leaving the couple alone in the chamber. The temple's crystals hummed with anticipation, creating an atmosphere of intimate privacy despite the grandeur of their surroundings. I never imagined my first time with a human would be quite so historically significant, Attila teased, moving closer to Kevin. I never imagined my first time with an alien would trigger an evolutionary leap for two species, he countered, pulling her into his arms. But I wouldn't have it any other way. As they came together, the temple's energy patterns shifted and swirled around them. Their natural intimacy, enhanced by genuine love and the ancient power of the temple, created something beautiful and unprecedented. The chamber filled with swirling lights and energy as their union progressed, their combined life forces triggering transformations in the very fabric of reality around them, yet neither noticed, lost in their own world of discovery and affection. Hours later, as the moons began to shift from their perfect alignment, Kevin and Attila lay contentedly in each other's arms. The temple's crystals pulsed with a satisfied glow, and new patterns of energy flowed through its walls. The union is complete, High Priestess Melara announced from outside the chamber. And yes, conception has occurred. The prophecies begin. Attila's hand moved to her abdomen, where new life had indeed taken root. I can feel it already, she whispered. Our child will be extraordinary. Our child will be loved, Kevin corrected, kissing her forehead. Everything else is just details. The temple's systems continued to reveal new information about their joined destiny. Their child would indeed be the first of a new evolutionary branch, combining the best aspects of both species. But more importantly, it would be a bridge between two civilizations that had been destined to meet. You know, Kevin mused, when I first took that flower, I thought I was just being polite to a beautiful alien woman. And instead, you became part of the greatest love story in two species history, Attila laughed. Still think you should have asked more questions? Never, he replied, pulling her close again. Some things are better left to destiny and clever alien women with flowers. The temple's crystals chimed in harmony with their laughter, celebrating the union that would change everything. Not through grand schemes or ancient prophecies, but through the simple power of love between two beings who were always meant to find each other. 9 months after the historic union in the ancient temple, the crystalline spires of House Nixtalan gleamed under the light of 3 moons once again. The entire complex hummed with anticipation as both human and Nixian delegations gathered for an unprecedented event. Kevin paced outside the birthing chamber, his muscular frame taut with nervous energy. The past months had been extraordinary, watching Attila's pregnancy progress with unprecedented effects on both of them. Their frequent intimate moments had triggered subtle evolutionary changes. His skin occasionally shimmed with bioluminescence, while she had developed increased physical adaptability. Your mate's condition is optimal, High Priestess Melara assured him. The child's energy signature is stronger than anything we've ever recorded. Ambassador Thompson approached, looking amused. You know, when I assigned you to embassy security, I didn't expect you to forge an evolutionary alliance between species. Life's full of surprises, Kevin grinned. Speaking of which, how's the joint human-Nixian colonization project going? Extraordinarily well. Turns out your accidental acceptance of that flower inspired quite a few human-Nixian couples, though most of them actually knew what the flower meant beforehand. The birthing chamber's crystals pulsed with increasing intensity. Kevin rushed inside at Attila's call, finding her surrounded by a cocoon of bioluminescent energy. Her lavender skin glowed with an inner light, and her silver eyes sparkled with joy. It's time, beloved, she whispered. The birth itself was remarkable. The chamber's ancient systems activated fully, supporting the arrival of a child that would bridge two species. As their daughter entered the world, the entire complex resonated with harmonic energy. She's perfect, Kevin breathed, holding their daughter for the first time. Her skin had a subtle lavender tint that seemed to shift with her emotions, and her eyes held both Attila's silver glow and his human depth. Aurora, Attila suggested, touching their daughter's cheek. After the Earth phenomenon you showed me in the hollow records. Aurora Nix to land more, Kevin agreed. Quite a name to live up to. The following days brought delegations from both worlds to witness the child's development. Aurora displayed unprecedented abilities, accelerated growth combined with remarkable genetic stability. She had inherited the best of both species. Human adaptability and creativity merged with Nixian psychic capabilities and biological control. 20 years later, the Great Hall of the Joint Species Council buzzed with activity as Aurora, now a striking young woman who embodied the perfect blend of human and Nixian traits, addressed the assembly. Her parents watched proudly from their seats of honor. The success of our mixed colonies has proven what my parents discovered through love, Aurora announced. Our species are stronger together. The ancient prophecies didn't just predict a single union, they foresaw the merger of two evolutionary paths into something greater. Kevin squeezed Attila's hand, remembering how it all began. You never did tell me if you planned to give me that flower from the start. Let's just say I had a feeling about you, Attila smirked, her silver eyes still holding the same mischievous spark, though I didn't expect you to accept it quite so quickly. Best mistake I ever made, he murmured, pulling her close for a kiss that still sent shivers through both of them. Their passion had only grown stronger over the years, each intimate moment continuing to trigger subtle evolutionary enhancements in both of them. The assembly hall's crystals pulsed in response to their affection, a common occurrence around human Nixian couples now. Their love had literally changed the physical laws of both their worlds. Aurora continued her address, outlining plans for further cooperation between the species. Under her guidance, humanity's drive to explore merged perfectly with Nixian biological mastery, creating ships that were more alive than machine, capable of adapting to any challenge the universe presented. You know, Kevin mused later that evening, as he and Attila watched the three moons rise from their private gardens. And I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd asked what that flower meant before accepting it. Probably exactly the same thing. Attila laughed, trailing her fingers along his chest, which now permanently held traces of Nixian bioluminescence. Some things are simply meant to be. Like us? Like us, she agreed, pulling him into another passionate embrace that made the garden's crystals sing with joy. Their daughter found them there later, lost in their own world as always. The council wants to discuss expanding the breeding program to other species, Aurora announced, trying to sound professional despite her amusement at her parents' eternal honeymoon phase. Tell them to make sure they explain the flowers properly this time, Kevin suggested with a wink. Or don't, Attila countered. Sometimes the best things in life come from beautiful mistakes. As the three moons reached their zenith, the garden's crystals pulsed with a combined life force of three beings who represented the future. A future born from a simple flower and the love that followed. Their story had become legend, taught to both species as proof that the greatest adventures often begin with the smallest misunderstandings. And somewhere in the ancient temple where it all began, the prophecy crystals continued to glow, showing visions of more wonderful mistakes waiting to happen between stars that had always meant to meet.